Hello there, and welcome to episode 72 of Little Big Knits. My name is Selma. I'm coming to you from Ottawa here in Canada, where I live with my family, our cat Yoda. And you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Selma Knits. Welcome to this episode, whether you've been here multiple times or it's your first time. Nice to see you here. And let me tell you a little bit about what I've got for you today. Well, knitting, of course. I've got some finished objects and works in progress, and I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update on my Advent plans, because we are at the very tail end of November, which means that we're heading into the Christmas season. And I do have some plans for Advent this year, so I thought I'd tell you a little bit about that. So, and also, if you were here last time, you know that I went to Mexico, so I thought I'd give you a little lowdown on Mexico, give you an update on a couple of fun things or interesting things that I've been watching or listening to, and I've got a wee podcast corner for you this time as well. So just before we start, we've got the LBK Connections Mal going. It's ending at the end of December. So this is the Connections Mal Make Along, which means that you can make anything, whether it's with yarn or fabric, knitting or woven or embroidered or whatever, if you're making it with things, materials or patterns that have been given to you, or you're making it for somebody else. So it's really about the connections, and boy oh boy, I'm sure we're going to be ramping up now, because this is a season where lots of people are making for others. So those things can be included in there as well. But the idea was also to, use the materials that people have given us, or when we're knitting for somebody, it's really about the connections that we have between one another, or with one another, I should say. We also have the Unspun Heroes Cal that's going on until the end of January, and this is about working with unspun yarn. So you know that I made the koyame a couple of episodes ago. I showed that to you, and I do have some plans to make some unspun mittens. In fact, I think I brought the yarn down so that I wouldn't forget. But I was going to use this Plotulopi to make some mittens, and I definitely want to do that. So let's get going, shall we? I'm actually wearing an item that I was knitting on the plane to and from Mexico. This item was knit up super fast because I had a lot of plane time and I was by myself, so there was just more time to knit. And I just wanted to say that I had been forewarned by multiple people that flying into Mexico with knitting needles was no problem, but that coming out of Mexico with knitting needles was a problem. So I decided that I was going to knit this on wooden needles that I'm not terribly attached to. I did bring another project as well, and I brought that on wooden needles as well. And I needed 2 needles for that one, and I brought cheap metal needles. And I got a little bit nervous when I was leaving Mexico, and I left those cheap metal needles behind, because I thought I don't want to risk losing all my knitting needles. So I just left those behind. There were some really cheapo ones that I've had for years. I thought that's fine. Hopefully somebody will pick them up in the hotel room who knows a knitter. And I had no problems with my wooden needles. Security said zilcho. They didn't even stop my bag and look at it extra. They clearly were looking for other things. They did take I accidentally had a water bottle in my bag, and they took that, but they weren't interested in the knitting needles. So it looks like either the Mexican authorities have relaxed. I remember Leanne of the Knitty Stew. I don't know if you watch her podcast. She's awesome, and she's a flight attendant or air crew with Air Canada, I'm assuming. And she was saying that she had words with the management or something in Mexico. So thank you, Leanne. Perhaps you made a change there, because I've traveled a lot in the last 20 years since people have, airports have gotten stiffer on security. And I've never had problems with my knitting needles, ever. anywhere I've been. And I've been to South America and to Europe and North America primarily, but never had a problem. So I just wanted to give an update on that. All right, so let's talk about this finished object. This was in my plans last time. This is the Stockholm Slipover by the Petite Knits. There are two petite knitters out there, but this is Petite Knits. She is, I believe, a Danish designer. And I had this yarn sitting around. I had wanted to make a white vest for quite a long time. It ended up being a double stranding of the Exquisite yarn by West Yorkshire Spinners, which I believe is a BFL silk base. I'll put it down here if I'm wrong about that. It's a lace weight, so I held it double, and then I had a strand of cream colored drops silk mohair. And so it created pretty much the gauge of the pattern, which I believe is 19 stitches. I may have had 20 stitches. So I might have gone up a size or something, or gone down a size. And there we go. I made it. It was super duper fast. I really, really enjoyed this. I've been wanting a white vest for a while. I had bought this yarn at least a year ago, wanting to make a white vest. And so I didn't wait too long, but I finally have a white vest. So I'll just give you a quick look at it before I actually, oh, it's got a bit of a wrinkle there from being folded. Before I put it away, it's a very, very basic vest. It's got a nice fit. The ribbings are all short and it just fits very nicely. So this is a great pattern, totally recommend it. I did make some mods and I thought I would tell you about those mods. The one thing I did was I modified the neckline slightly. She has you do a few more increases at the edge here before casting on to create the round. And I wanted it a little bit shorter. So I think I eliminated about 3 of those increases. And I just cast on 6 extra stitches here. So I made it a little bit higher. I knew that I wanted to wear it with this top that I had gotten. Poofy sleeves are definitely in at the moment, and I knew that I wanted to wear it with this, and I knew that if it was lower it was going to do that, which is not terrible, but I preferred that it didn't. So I thought I would do that and it would create more of a round neck. Hers is kind of like somewhere between a V-neck and a round neck, and I wanted it to be a round neck. The other modification that I did was I knit less stitches, less rows here the second time, because I didn't completely follow the pattern. I can't remember how many rows she had you do, but I did a few less rows before I started the increase to go under the arms. And I did the back, I did the front, and then it was like down here somewhere. And I was like, no, that's just not going to cut it. So I pulled back and I went up a little higher. And basically what I did was I figured my arm is going in around there. Yeah, just around there. I thought that's where my arm is going in. I want a little bit of space. I don't want this to be super tight. I want to have room for, for the sleeves. So I wanted, and also I wanted a little bit of room for the ribbing. But I figured, okay, my arm is starting to go in there. My armpit area is, I don't know, it's probably got some sort of term in the sewing world, but or the designing world. But yeah, I just decided, okay, that makes sense there, and I did that, and that was just right. It worked out perfectly, actually. And then the other modification was that the pattern has you knit the body quite long. I think it was like 19 inches. I actually read it twice because I was like, am I wrong about this? My sweaters are usually between 11 and 13 inches long. I'm short for one. So I thought, well, don't really want this to be any longer. So I think this has been made to be about 13 inches. I didn't tuck in my shirt, but I was wearing this for work the other day, and a different skirt, and I had the bottom one tucked in, but I didn't tuck it in for today. But yeah, it's about just around my hip area. And that's the great thing about length. They might tell you to make it a certain length. You make it the length that it works for you. And the other thing that I like to do is that she actually had you do decreases, not many, just a couple as you went down. And I decided that I didn't want to do it. I thought it had the nice ease here, just a little bit of ease that I thought it would be fine the way it was, and it's turned out great. The Afra sweater by Isabel Kramer that I made this summer, that was another one where she had you do more decreases. And there I thought it made a lot of sense because it was a drop shoulder. And I think it just depends on your body shape. And so I decided that I wasn't going to do the decreases, but there were only a couple of them really. And I don't think it would have made a huge difference, but I just decided I wasn't going to do them. And next time I might. I could totally see myself making this. For some reason, I really want one in a bright pink. I don't know why, but I actually, what I really want is a bright pink sweater. I seem to have suddenly this thing where I want a bright pink sweater. So when I come across the bright pink yarn that works, I'll make it. And maybe by the time I find the right bright pink, I will no longer want a bright pink sweater. So we'll see. But anyway, back to this. Those are the mods that I made. It's top down with some very interesting shoulder shaping that is very effective. And so don't skimp out on that if you happen to make it. And yeah, no, just a really nice pattern, really would make it again. It was just a good guide, although I did make quite a few modifications, but I'm glad I bought the pattern because I had thought about just coming up with a design myself. But the short row shaping that she included up here was very interesting. It was different than any short row shaping that I'd seen before. I wouldn't have done it that way, and I think it was actually kind of interesting. So I'm glad that I purchased the pattern and didn't just devise one on my own. And it's a great, simple, straightforward vest pattern. And I finally have a vest in white, which is kind of perfect for the winter season as well. So yeah, so I wore this with this top and another skirt that I have to work the other day when I went. So this was a great addition to my work wardrobe. The next finished object that I have are these Opal socks. And you know what? I don't even know what color this is. I'd have to check if I put it on last time. But this is a pair of socks that I've been sort of knitting on here and there using opal yarn. And I actually don't think I tried to match them up, but they've actually matched up quite nicely. Interesting. I just thought, too bad they're not going to match up, but they have, and I hadn't even really paid attention to that until now. But they really do. So this is Opal sock yarn. I'll try to remember to put it down here. It was part of I think the favorites collection. And I made this pair of socks for a friend for Christmas. So they would be an entry in the LBK Connections Mal. I'm not making a lot of knitted items this year for Christmas. I have another project on the go that I won't be showing you today. I'll show it to you later once it's been gifted. So yeah, so this is the second pair of makes. Really, I cast on 60 stitches. I've started making socks with 60 stitches a lot of the time. Top down, I did a garter heel this time for something a little bit different. Gusset coming in and then Kitchenering the toe. I did a 2x2 ribbing. So really cute pair. This is a friend who I make socks for quite regularly. She seems to like my socks, and so does her daughter who steals them from her. So I figure I really do need to make them socks. They've been friends for years. In fact, we've been friends since grade 4. So yeah, so I made another pair for her. The third finished object that I have for you today are these leg warmers. I finished them. I haven't actually worn them out into the world because I haven't needed to. The other day when I was commuting to work in a skirt, just wasn't that cold and I didn't want to overheat. But it was about 0 Celsius, which I suppose is about 32 Fahrenheit. And we're actually having a couple of, over 0 degrees. We've had some snow, but it's come and gone. And so once it does get colder, I actually wore them in the house one day when I was feeling cold, and they did an amazing job of warming me up. And leg warmers, it's definitely the year for leg warmers. I was really intrigued by how many of you in the comments last time were actually knitting leg warmers or had made leg warmers. So I think they're great. I'm not sure that they're my last pair. I'll put in a little bit of video I took just before starting the podcast of me wearing them, just on my bare legs with my Blundstone boots. I have worn them over jeans as well, and like in the house when I wore them. And no, they've been really, really fabulous. So this, darn, I've forgotten your name again. I'm so sorry because I know that you watch the podcast. The designer last time said, I'm so glad you're knitting my pattern. And here's her name again because I had it in my head and it's gone. There's something like a Sattler and a Virginia. So it's there. But she's actually come out with another pair of leg warmers, which are very lovely. And so, yeah, I might just knit a second pair at some point, but these are gonna be just what I need for now. And if anybody asks me for some leg warmers, I'd be happy to make them. I made them from a cone of Briggs & Littles that I have that is a single ply. I'm not 100% sure what the base is called because the cone I bought out of a warehouse sale at Wool Time, which is a local yarn shop. And it didn't tell you what the base was. It was really cheap. I think I paid $15 for the entire cone. And this was the first time that I actually used it. I double stranded it. It's very woolly. And yeah, I'm really curious. I haven't washed and blocked these. I thought, do I really need to? I'm just gonna wear them, and they're quite form-fitting on my calves because I do have quite shapely calves, shall we call them? And so I didn't bother washing and blocking them, although I'm kind of curious about what would happen to the wool, so I might just do it just to see what will happen to the wool. But yeah, an awesome make, great pattern, good pattern yarn combination. I told you last time that I made the smallest size, and I think that it was the right size to make because they'll stay up. There was quite a difference between the 3 sizes, and I thought if I were to make them again, I might cast on just a couple of, maybe 4 stitches just to make the calves a tiny bit bigger, but keep the whatchamacallit, the ribbing the same because I want them to stay up. So yeah, so those are my 3 finished objects for today. So let's talk a little bit about whips, but first I just want to have a little sip of tea because my mouth is getting a little dry, and I have a new mug. I'm not sure eventually who is going to kick me out of the house. All my yarn that's stashed are all the mugs that I have, but I feel like they're taking over. I bought this mug in Mexico. It was a memory mug more than anything because the hotel that I stayed in had these mugs that you could drink out of. And I went to a local market. They didn't have many of them, but there was one stall that had them, and so I bought one. It's a very, very sort of, I think, sort of traditional, simple countryside kind of mug that they have in Mexico. I think somebody told me that they were from the Oaxaca region, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But I decided to buy that. And today I'm actually drinking some tea. It's called a warming Tulsi tea by Genuine Tea, which is a Canadian tea company out of Toronto, I believe. And I really enjoy their teas a lot. So that's what I'm having this morning. The family is starting to arise. So if you hear some noise, that's the family. All right, let's talk about works in progress. So, in this glorious bag that is, well, kind of a little bit of a Halloween theme, but you know what? We're still using it. Kristen of Vine, the Vine podcast. I'm sure you know of her. If you don't, please go and check her out. She sent me this bag a couple of years ago. And what do I have in here but the Mega Diamond cardigan by Cami Jo Knits. And I haven't, obviously I didn't take this to Mexico with me, and I haven't knit on it a whole lot, but because it's with bulky yarn, it goes so fast and it's very light and bouncy. So I have basically gotten to the point where one would divide for the body and the sleeves. It's going to be about that length. I thought I'm just going to make it the same length that I would make most of my cardigans. I have a feeling that it's going to block out a little bit, but I've basically just started going up. I'm almost finished going up the first front of the cardigan, and yeah, that's what it looks like. And so I have I knit on this for a little bit, and then I want to slow down because I've started something else up that I really want to make by Christmas. But this is using this fabulous yarn by Cami Jo. She sent it to me. Well, I got it from her. This is her Mega Mohair. There's her label, and this is her Pink Lilac. And you'll recall that I made the Giselle shawl 2-3 episodes ago. That was also her design. And it has the same lace pattern on it. And I made it out of thinner mohair from her that was this color, and I just loved it so much. So I ordered some of that, and she has not published this design quite yet, but I think it's imminent. I believe she's about to publish it. If I'm wrong, I'll put it down here, but I don't think it's out yet, but I know that it's very close to it. She had a podcast recently. She also podcasts, and she talked about publishing it. She had been, I think, approached by some people who watched my podcast, as well as Mega of Skeen Deer, who test knit it for her. And so people are wanting it, and it's going to be so darn cute. I can't wait for this to be finished. So yeah, so that is coming along. I think I'm making it on 8mm needles, if I remember correctly. These are Addis, I believe, and they don't say. Yes, this is an 8mm needle, so it really goes very fast. I think that what I have done here, I believe, is 3 evenings of work, because it just goes so fast. So really, I think another 2 or 3 evenings and I would finish the body for sure. And then the sleeves would probably take an evening each, maybe. I don't know. So it's a question of having time, but I do have some other little priorities right now. So I do hope that by the new year, this will be finished for sure. And as soon as the pattern is out, I will alert you on Instagram if you're not following Cami Jo Knits herself. And but she'll have it on her Instagram, I'm sure. Yeah, and so that is my first work in progress. So in love with that. It's so much fun to make as well. I love that lace, and the yarn is wonderful, and it just goes so fast, and I can't wait to have this cardigan. That is work in progress number 1. Work in progress number 2 was amongst my plans last time, and in fact, I believe I showed it to you. It was in this linen bag, and I was going to put it into a lined project bag, but I decided to just keep it in here. This is a lovely linen bag that my friend Kate of the Hawthorne Cottage Craft podcast had given me, and it's from Madder Root, Maine, I believe they're called. And in here last time, do you remember what yarn I had? In here last time, I had some red yarn. I had some Drops lace, which is a discontinued yarn that I had found at Wool Time in their discount bin. And I had some Le Petit Silk Mohair by Biche et Buche, which I am double stranding with the drops lace. And I am finally making the red ranunculus. Yay! Finally, I'm just on the yoke, so there's not a whole lot to show you, but it is going to be a light and airy Christmas ranunculus. So this is a priority right now. I want to make sure that this is finished by Christmas. So there's this and the one Christmas present. Those are two priorities. So I'm focusing on those right now. But yeah, I'm on my way with the red ranunculus and really, really very excited. And it is going to be very light and airy, this one. So I'll be, of course, wearing something underneath it. And I sort of see like a black skirt with a black camisole underneath, and this as just a light layer on top. That's how I'm envisioning the outfit. So yeah, very excited about this. This is finally getting made. It's being made on 6mm needles. I always cast on. I don't do the fancy schmancy cast on. I just do a regular long tail cast on. I cast on the number of stitches that you would end up with if you did the fancy schmancy long tail cast on, and then I increase and keep going. I usually make the original size, which in the updated version is size 3. And so I'm going to see the only difference between all the sizes. The start of the sweater is the same for everyone, which I think is really ingenious. And I don't know, I hope it's worked for everybody, because I do think that, you know, there has been at times a misconception among designers that as sizes get larger, necklines should get larger. And one of the most painful things I've seen in the past is, you know, a larger person who's made a sweater and the neck is just like completely falling off, and it's just not right, you know. So I do think that designers are getting smarter, making more size inclusive patterns. This was a very, you know, she started out as a one size thing, and she has, I think there are at least 8 sizes in the pattern. Actually, I believe I have the pattern here. I decided to print it out. It's been on my phone all the time, but I decided to print it out because I really wanted to study the different sizes and see what happens. And basically, the different sizes come around from the raglan increasing that you do at the end. So it is really, really interesting that way. There are actually 11 sizes now, so it's very size inclusive, and it's such a great pattern. And I love the fact that, you know, she starts with the same size of neckline. And I know that the neckline ends up different for different people depending on how you cast on and so forth. But for me, with the long tail cast on, it works out great for me. So that is on the way. So what I was going to say earlier was that I've started out, and I'm going to aim for the size 3, which was the original size, I'm quite sure. And if it looks like I feel like adding a couple of extra raglan increases, I'll add a couple of extra raglan increases. So yeah, it's very flexible that way. So you could start a ranunculus not quite knowing what size you're going to end up with, because the starting is the same for everybody. So that is work in progress number 2. Work in progress number 3 is, oops, I haven't taken the tag off yet. There we go. Is actually a bag by Paradise Island. Patricia was visiting a couple of weeks ago and gave me this beautiful bag from her collection. And my next project is in here. So this is a sock bag, but there are actually 2 skeins in here, and they're living in here quite comfortably. So it's a really roomy bag that is just so well made. Her bags are so well made. And Patricia's actually venturing into leather. I think she may have had a shop update today or this weekend. Hello, Yoda. Now, I showed this to you last time. This was also amongst my plans. I had these 2 skeins of yarn. This purple is by Alley Cat Yarns, and it was the colorway Royal Flush. And this one here with the pretty speckling is by Cami Jo Knits, and it is her One Night in Bangkok, and it's her sock base. I got this, actually got both of them to make socks, but for now, they're becoming a hat. And they are becoming the Pressed Flowers hat, which I hadn't intended to cast on quite right away, but I needed some simple knitting one night. And I was at a spot with both of those projects where I didn't quite know, I needed to like think a little bit. And I think I was in the same kind of situation with the Christmas knit. So I decided to cast on the Pressed Flowers because I thought it starts with ribbing. And so that's what I've done. I've done the ribbing with the Alley Cat Yarns. And Melissa is local to me. She's here in Ottawa. And we've actually met as well. So that's really fun. So I'm using her yarn, and I have just started this portion here where you start getting into the mosaic knitting. So I'm quite excited about this because this is my first mosaic project. I've wanted to do mosaic for some time. I think when I had the Colorwork Cal a couple of years ago, I thought I would make a mosaic something or other, and it didn't happen. So not a whole lot to show you at this point. Just got this polka dotted stripe happening here. But I'm just following the pattern and trucking along, and we'll see how it works out. I'm really excited for the experience, and I hope that it's a lovely hat. It's going to be a light hat because it's just a fingering weight yarn, single ply. And oops, I've got a needle that's gotten stuck in there. I actually tried it on. You won't be able to see a whole lot, but it's definitely, you know, going to fit quite, not snugly at all, actually. I'm going to say that it's going to have a nice, loose, light fit, I think. So it'll be a nice hat for this kind of time of the year when it's not too cold. So that is my third work in progress, plus the Christmas knit that I can't show you. Apart from that, I've actually been making quite a few crocheted squares. I have been working on crocheted squares. I've been carrying this Ziploc around with me here and there, and have been making crocheted squares for my crochet blanket. As Advent approaches, I actually have made quite a few. As Advent approaches very quickly, and maybe you'll be watching this and Advent will have already started. Every year I like to do something. I've kind of gotten into the habit, I would say over the last 4 or 5 years, of doing something during Advent. And I've had some exchanges of Advent calendars with my friend Kate. I can't even remember what I did last year, but in the past, Kate and I, with our Advent calendars one year, we made ourselves a cardigan. You may recall if you've been around for a little while, I think that was 2 years ago. And I wear that cardigan often. It's really more of a house cardigan. I wouldn't wear it out, but it's great over my nightie on a cold morning kind of thing. Also made the Habitation Throw by Helen Stewart. And Helen Stewart has quite a few Advent-like projects that you can make. And I didn't get a yarn Advent calendar this year because I have so many bits and bobs. And originally I was going to make the Dust of Snow by Helen Stewart with leftovers from sweaters. And I've got them all gathered up and waiting to happen. I decided that I'm going to leave that, and I think I'm going to cast that on for Christmas Eve. And then from there, really get that going, and it'll finish when it finishes. But I really wanted to do something, and I decided, the reason that I'm working on squares is that I decided that I am going to add which way is the right way? I'm going to add a square a day to this blanket that I've been working on over the last couple of years. And I actually am kind of been adding a little differently this last time here. I think I just wanted the colors to go that way, so I just did that. So I've decided that I'm going to add a square a day to this blanket during the Advent season. I thought that would be great for helping me get across these rows. There are 9 squares across. So whatever, I'll get, almost 3 rows worth of squares for the Advent season, and I think that'll be great. So that's going to be my Advent knitting. And last year I did a tea Advent with a company called Woolshank, and that was really great. I really enjoyed it. I really like their teas a lot. And since then I actually regularly buy their spiced Earl Grey tea, I believe. I absolutely love it, and it's my afternoon tea almost every day. Sometimes I'll have my traditional Ahmed cardamom tea or Twinings or Twinnings Earl Grey tea, but I really, really like that tea from Woolshank, and I contemplated doing another Advent with them. However, Yoda, you seem to be perturbed. Are you perturbed? She's just kind of going all over the place. I really wanted to do the Advent last year by Puka. And the reason I got the Woolshank one was because the Puka one was sold out. So this year I'll be doing the Puka tea Advent, which I could open. Oopsies. Oh dear. I think I just did something a little silly. But essentially it opens up like that. And you hang it up, and every day you grab a tea, and it's numbered. So you kind of go wherever the number is and you pick a tea. And they are almost all herbal teas, which is great because I always have herbal tea in the evenings. So I think it'll be great. And then some days there'll be a caffeinated tea and I'll have it during the day. So I decided to do another tea Advent. And then I totally splurged. Merry Christmas to me a little early, and I got a makeup one or beauty products one by Clarins. I got totally sucked in, not gonna lie, but I'm actually really, really excited about this. And it was rather pricey, but it also, there was a discount and whatever, and I could justify it all I like, right? I just decided I'm gonna give that to myself. I really like their products. I use their products actually on my face pretty regularly. So I thought I'm gonna use all of those up. So those are my 3 plans for Advent. So on the 24th of December, and hopefully I'll podcast before then, but I do hope to cast on the Dust of Snow. And I also have these 2 sock yarns. This one my friend Holly gave to me last year. It was from the Wool Baron. The Blitzen is the colorway. This is a 50-gram skein. So I need to find a really nice color to go with it for the heels and toes. I gotta see what I've got in my stash. I also got this one last year for myself by Night Owl Fibers, and this is called Christmas Lights. I really wanted just a green and white, so I need to find the heels and cups and toes for this one as well. And these will get, one of these will get cast on. I haven't quite decided which one. They're so beautiful, both of them, that I can't decide. But once I've finished my Christmas knitting, and I'm, probably finished my Ranunculus, I think I'll cast on for a pair of Christmas socks, and they'll get finished when they get finished. So that's another little plan I have for the upcoming season. I wanted to quickly mention some of the patterns that have come into my life recently. I have a couple of gift patterns that have been given to me. So I wanted to say thank you for, one is the Sea Glass by Christy Archer, which I'll put a picture of here. One of the sides, which is a lovely yoke sweater with a lace detail at the bottom. And I was actually looking at the yoke construction and I quite liked it. So I'm thinking about using that at some point. Also, the Adelita by Sari Nordlund. And that was gifted to me by Leah. So thank you to both of you for these gifts. Really, really appreciate it. Both lovely, lovely patterns. I've also bought a couple of patterns. One is called the Bombec by Emily Louise. It seems like it's a year for balaclavas. I feel like there's a balaclava pattern being released daily. They are all over the place. And when I saw this balaclava, I was like, I need that in my life. So I think if I'm going to make the balaclava, I got to make it now because it's the balaclava moment. And so I've been sort of thinking about what to use to make it. I have some leftovers from this, but not sufficient. So I might see what I have in my stash. I believe it takes about a skein of yarn, a fingering weight yarn with a mohair. There is also the Cargill cowl. And I believe it was only until the end of November. But the Cargill cowl is a design by Rebecca Clow. She also designed the Cargill sweater, which you may have seen. This was her first sweater design, I believe, and a fabulous, beautiful design that has been knit by multiple people already, and it's just absolutely stunning. She published the Cargill cowl, which is using the same stitch pattern as in the sweater. But the proceeds for this cowl are going to the Fistula Foundation to support women who have had issues with fistulas. Are you going to come and say hi? You going to come say hi? You might see a Yoda. She's lurking about, making funny noises. So I can't remember, but I feel like Rebecca was going to be sending all proceeds until the end of November. If I'm wrong, I'm down here. But I'm really looking forward to making that. There she comes. Not just for a walk by. You might see her tail there for a little bit. And she made me lose my train of thought. You made me lose my train of thought, Yo-Yo. I'm just going to show you what she's doing. She just sits there, looks out the window, because she wants to go outside. So, yes, I'm talking about you. Completely lost my train of thought. I'm very sorry. But yes, the Cargill cowl uses the same stitch pattern, so it's a great way to practice that stitch pattern. And yeah, so I'm intrigued by that and would like to make it, and very, very happy to support Rebecca's cause with the Fistula Foundation. The other pattern that I got, and it's a sock pattern that I'd like to make. I have so many things that I want to make right now. I'm sure this happens to more than just me, right? Is the September Woods Socks by This Handmade Life. I love her patterns. She just makes the nicest things. And this pattern is no different. The September Wood Socks. And I have some yarn actually that I had started another pattern with that I realized wasn't a great fit for the yarn. So I think I might make this pattern with that yarn. So stay tuned for that. We'll see when that happens. I also got the Auni socks in the fingering weight. This is a pattern by Maria Costa Movara. She is a designer in Finland, but also the podcaster behind the Nupu Nupu podcast, which is a Finnish language podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts. I mentioned that podcast to you when I started Podcast Corner. I really like these, and I love the fact that they've got baubles around the top, so it creates a little bit of a feminine look. I thought if I'm wearing a dress or a skirt and wearing my Blundstones to commute to work, having that little pretty accent coming above the Blundstones could be really pretty. So I'm kind of thinking about making those soon. And recently I got the puffed polo. This is a pattern by Mayu KP. I've got a black and white. I printed it because I'm really seriously thinking about making this. This, I think, would be a really nice sweater for work. Now, this cowl and the puff sleeve is definitely having its moment, and I just think that is so feminine, and it would be nice with pants. It would be nice with skirts. This cowl neck, I'm not sure whether it is attached or not, and I'm not sure that I would make the cowl neck. I think I would leave that for later. I do think it's added on later. And I have some yarn by Baramu in the tightest base in the Bantam colorway, which is kind of a burgundy color, that I thought I could do that. Or I have some yarn that is in a blue gray that I had been kind of keeping for something else, but I could also do it in that. But I think I'm leaning towards the burgundy. I haven't quite decided yet, but I decided to print this because I thought this was not in my plans, but I just find it to be so pretty and really lovely. So I might just make that. It would actually kind of look like this. And I'm liking this look. So yeah. So those are some of the patterns that have come into my life lately. And that really concludes the knitting section. I just thought I'd give you some impressions from Mexico. I'll be leaving you with images from Mexico. So if you want to see, I went to Mexico City. I went for work. I had to work from Monday to Wednesday, so I left on Friday and spent the weekend in Mexico City exploring on my own, and I stayed in a different area. For work, I was going to be working at the Canadian Embassy. I work for Global Affairs Canada, and so I was going to be in the area called Polanco, where the embassy is, and our hotel for work was going to be. So I stayed in the Centro Histórico, the historical center of the city, in a cute little hotel, in probably like the best location ever for seeing that area. And so I was able to just walk around, see the beautiful, beautiful architecture that is in that city. And that city is just busy and bustling. And I really, really liked Mexico City, I have to say. I really loved the fact that it was busy and bustling, and even when you're in the tourist areas, for the most part, it's full of Mexicans. So you don't feel like you're just there with all the other tourists. You really feel like you're in a city that's being lived in by the people who are there, which is really great. I feel like sometimes when you go to big cities and you go to, the most popular areas for tourists, there are more tourists than there are locals, and this really didn't feel that way. The only time it felt that way was when I went to the Frida Kahlo Museum. The Frida Kahlo Museum was, of course, full of tourists. But the area that the Frida Kahlo Museum is in is just great, beautiful area. It was wonderful to walk around. There's a huge square that, again, was just full of people from the area enjoying their Sunday afternoon. And there were some lovely markets, and really, really, really nice. So I essentially, for my weekend, I arrived on Friday at noon. Friday, I just spent in my area in the historical center. And the building that my hotel was in, it was on the third floor of the building, and it had a wonderful bar on the top floor. So I went and had dinner there, and then Saturday, I took the hop on and hop off bus. I thought that would be a great way to see the city. It was, except that the traffic in Mexico City is literally outrageous. And I think there were actually some demonstrations on one of the main arteries. So it made for a very slow hop on and hop off bus. And the only place I actually hopped off was at the Chapultepec Park, which is a huge park in the middle of the city. I believe it's double the size of Central Park. And it's just beautiful. I really enjoyed it. I walked around the botanical gardens, which you'll see, and there are 2 lakes. There's also a castle, and I did not make it to the castle. I somehow missed the castle. And even though it wasn't far from the Canadian Embassy, I never got to it. So I have to go back to Mexico City to see that castle. There are also museums there that I didn't get to see, but you know, I only had 3 days, and because I was on my own, I also felt like I needed to be careful. I didn't really want to be out at night roaming around by myself. So I did what I did during the day, and then the evening I stayed near the hotel. I relaxed, I knit, which was really wonderful. And Sunday, I went to the Frida Kahlo Museum, which was absolutely wonderful. Really glad I went. Quite moving at moments. I'll leave you footage. I had a couple of reels on my Instagram in case you saw them there, so you'll see some of the footage again if you stay and watch. And I just loved that area. It's called Coyoacan, and just a really great area. Really liked it. Walking around was just really beautiful, and as I said, there was a fabulous square with restaurants and the artisans market around it, and it was just really great. And then I worked for 3 days, and I didn't have much time. We had very, very long days. I was there for a kind of a conference workshop session type of thing. It went on all week. I only stayed until Wednesday. I came back Thursday morning because I had to present something on Wednesday. And we were there till, 5:30 every day. So really, I walked a little bit around the area that I was in, but that was really about it. So yeah, I actually saw a yarn store, but I didn't go in. I was with 2 colleagues. We were walking around, and I just thought, I'm not going in. That's it. So I saw it from the outside. I think it focused on crochet, actually. So I think it had a lot of sort of crochet thread and stuff like that, but it looked like a lovely store. So really, really positive impressions of Mexico. As I said, crazy busy. I did feel like there were some areas where I had to be careful, and I think that's true for everybody. But really beautiful city. I loved the energy of the city. It was just really, really nice. I really liked it a lot. And I lived in Spain years ago, so and I have a degree in Spanish literature. I started studying Spanish in high school. So I'm married to a South American. So there's a lot of Spanish in my life. And I was really happy to be in a place where I was speaking Spanish again. And it was just really, really nice. So yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I know there was one viewer who contacted me who lives in Budapest, or in Hungary anyway, but is from Mexico. So I just want to tell you that I loved Mexico City. Really did. Really, really did. I would love to go back. I thought, I'm not done with Mexico City. So that was Mexico City. Just a couple of other little things. I finished a book recently. I haven't been listening to books as much. I've been really listening to music and listening to podcasts of different kinds. But I did finish a book. It took me a long time to finish it. I think I was also not enamored with the book. And so it took me a long time. I was not enamored with the book, but I was also intrigued by the book. And this is a book by a Polish writer called Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. The writer is Olga Tokarczuk, I believe, and I believe she received a Nobel Prize for her literature. And the book was very interesting. The premise was very interesting. There was an interesting humor to it, but there was just something that I didn't get as pulled into it. But I found the philosophical premise around our treatment of animals was very, very interesting. And so it was a pretty, it was a very interesting book. And the writing was good, and I think it was well translated. It was quite well narrated. But this was actually probably the first book where I've had to speed up the narration. She was slow. So I ended up listening to it at 1.3, and that helped. But I think it was a good book. I have a friend who's read it, but I haven't had a chance to talk to her yet to see what her impressions of it were and if reading it was any different than listening to it. But nothing wrong with the book. I wouldn't say I would say I think it's interesting, and if you're interested in thinking about our place in the world with animals, I think it's an interesting book. There's a lot of magical realism in it as well. There was a lot around horoscopes and sort of tying in all these different things, and it was interesting. Definitely an interesting book. A movie that I saw that I don't think I mentioned to you guys, it was from 2020, so it was already a little bit old, but it was called The Duke with Ed Broadbent and oh my gosh, now her name, Helen Mirren. I saw that a little while ago and I hadn't mentioned it to you guys, and it was such a delightful movie. Totally worth seeing. I'm sure it's on some platform at this point, so it's a lovely movie about the theft of a painting, of a famous painting, and this older couple in a working class England. And it's just such a well acted, well told, delightful movie. Loved it. So highly recommend. I also saw See How They Run, which is a movie with Saoirse Ronan, Adrian Brody, and some a whole cast of good and well-known actors, and it's a kind of a whodunit sort of movie, and it was enjoyable as well. I love Saoirse Ronan. She's one of my favorite actresses. She's just so gifted, and it was a great story as well, kind of a whodunit. I think I preferred The Duke, but I still enjoyed to See How They Run if I had to compare them. I'm also rewatching Ted Lasso, which is on Apple TV here, and I watched it before. I so loved it, and I thought, I just feel like watching it again. I'm missing Ted Lasso. So I am on the second season of Ted Lasso, and hopefully at some point in the not too distant future, the third season will come out. So those are some of the lovelies that have been my way recently. I'm now listening to the book Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell and really enjoying that, actually. So I'm curious to see if my book listening mojo has come back. In terms of podcast corner, I have two podcasts that I wanted to mention today. One of them is the Hawthorne Cottage Craft. After a little hiatus or a longer hiatus from podcasting, Kate of the Hawthorne Cottage Craft is back. So if you watched her before and didn't realize that she's back, head on over. And if you haven't watched her before, go and check her out. She's a dear friend of mine. You've heard her mentioned on my podcast probably every single time. And so yeah, she has come back and hopefully will continue to podcast. And the other podcast that I wanted to mention is a newer podcast. She is Canadian. She's out of Hamilton, Ontario. And the podcast is called Mare Makes. I think she has 4 episodes out. And I just really appreciated her podcast from the get-go. I enjoy watching her very much. I believe her name is Tara Marie. So yeah, she's somebody whose podcast I really enjoy. Enjoy her makes, enjoy how she talks about her makes, and a fellow Ontarian, I must say. So yeah, another one that I wanted to mention today. And I believe, as I have the mess around me, that brings me to the end of the podcast. So I'll leave you with sights from Mexico, and I'll see you next time. Next time, hopefully before Christmas, but as we get into the Christmas season, there ends up being a lot happening around here, so we'll see. I'm not one to do Vlogmas. It just doesn't fit my life. I work full-time. I'm actually really busy at work, and it's nighttime by the time I have free time, and so I can't do it. Sometimes I think I would like to do like weekly updates, but it just is a little bit too intense of a time between work and getting ready for Christmas to even contemplate doing that. So sometimes what I do is I'll share my Advent on my Instagram stories. So I usually will, share the tea of the day, and perhaps this time my Clarins product of the day, and a little bit about my square of the day. I don't necessarily even know what my minis are anymore because many of them have just been around for so long, but I don't tend to do Vlogmas. I love the idea, and I love watching Vlogmas. I usually watch a couple of Vlogmases, but I just can't do it myself. So you will hopefully see me for a podcast before Christmas. If it just doesn't happen, it'll be between Christmas and New Year's because I'll definitely find the time then. So until next time, my friends, I hope all is well with you. I hope you're enjoying your crafting. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Hello, Yoda. Hi. Are you ready to podcast? Oh, not quite so sure.
Sal de tu nido, paloma linda, anda y prueba tu volar. No tengas miedo, mi palomita, que nada te va a pasar. Anda y prueba tus alas bonitas, sin que el temor te limite. Vuela paloma bien alto, mi vida, no dudes que siempre amanece, ya amanecerá. Paloma linda, paloma, paloma linda, paloma, paloma linda, paloma, paloma linda. Cree en tu fuerza, paloma linda, el cielo te va a cuidar. Cuando no salga el sol, mi paloma, tu propia luz te va a guiar. Anda y prueba tus alas bonitas, sin que el temor te limite. Vuela paloma tan libre como la vida, no dudes que siempre amanece, ya amanecerá. Paloma linda, paloma, paloma linda, paloma, paloma linda, paloma, paloma linda. Sal de tu nido, paloma linda, anda y prueba tu volar. No tengas miedo, mi palomita, que nada te va a pasar. Anda y prueba tus alas bonitas, sin que el temor te limite. Vuela paloma bien alto, mi vida, no dudes que siempre amanece, ya amanecerá. Linda paloma.